China gave the world 4 great inventions, 3,000 years of civilization, the longest continuous culture on Earth. China also runs the largest mass detention of an ethnic minority since the Holocaust. This is why people flee. China gave us paper, gunpowder, the compass, and printing. 4 great inventions that shaped human history. But over 1 million Uyghurs are detained in vocational education and training centers in Xinjiang today. China is the home of Confucius, the Tao, and one of the oldest Buddhist traditions in the world. But underground house churches are raided, Bibles are confiscated, and pastors are imprisoned. Tiananmen Square is the largest public square in the world, a symbol of the People's Republic. But on June 4, 1989, the same square saw a massacre. Student leaders like Wang and Wuer Kaixi escaped only by fleeing. Hong Kong was once a global financial capital with free press, free assembly, and an independent judiciary. But since the national security law of 2020, hundreds of pro-democracy activists have been arrested, and more under Article 23 of 2024. China is home to artists who shaped the modern world, including Ai Weiwei, who designed the Bird's Nest Stadium for the Beijing Olympics. But Ai Weiwei was secretly detained for 81 days in 2011. He fled to Berlin as soon as his passport was returned. The world calls this the silent repression. Today, we make it loud. You are watching the Human Rights Expert Witness channel. We are country expert witnesses based in London. We write expert reports for immigration tribunals in the United Kingdom, the United States, Canada, and the European Union. We have reviewed 10 Chinese asylum cases, all anonymized. Uyghurs from Xinjiang, House Christians from Henan, Falun Gong practitioners, Hong Kong democracy activists, a Tibetan monk. Each of them fled for a different reason, but all of them fled the same system. Today, we walk through every one of those reasons. Modern China was founded in 1949 by Mao Zedong. His Cultural Revolution from 1966 to 1976 killed an estimated 1 to 2 million people. Temples were destroyed. Intellectuals were sent to re-education camps. Religion was banned. Then came the first dissident generation. Wei Jingsheng was an electrician at Beijing Zoo. In 1978, he wrote a wall poster called The Fifth Modernization, calling for democracy alongside Deng Xiaoping's 4 economic modernizations. He was arrested, 18 years in Chinese prison. He was finally released in 1997 under international pressure and forcibly put on a plane to the United States. China gave him a choice: silence at home or freedom abroad. He chose abroad. Then came Tiananmen, June 4, 1989. The Chinese government has never published a death toll. Estimates range from several hundred to several thousand. Wang was number 1 on the most wanted list. Peking University history student, 10 years in prison, released on medical grounds in 1998 and exiled to the United States. Wuer Kaixi was number 2 on the most wanted list. He famously confronted Premier Li Peng on national television during the protest, wearing hospital pajamas because he had been on hunger strike. He escaped through Hong Kong on what was called Operation Yellowbird, a covert rescue mission run by Hong Kong activists, sympathetic businessmen, and Western intelligence services. Xi Jinping became General Secretary of the Communist Party in late 2012. Since then, the screws have tightened. 2014, the Strike Hard campaign against terrorism in Xinjiang begins. 2017 to 2019, mass internment of Uyghurs estimated at 1 to 1.8 million. 2018, regulations on religious affairs criminalize house churches. 2020, Hong Kong national security law passed by Beijing, bypassing the Hong Kong legislature. 2024, Article 23 further tightens dissent in Hong Kong.
In China, I urge the authorities to stop using vague criminal, administrative and national security provisions to suppress the peaceful exercise of fundamental rights. I urge them to release all those arbitrarily detained. I regret the lack of follow-up by the authorities on previous recommendations and an accountability to protect the rights of Uyghurs and other Muslim minorities in Xinjiang and of Tibetans in their regions.
Here is what I tell every lawyer who brings me a Chinese case. The Chinese Communist Party has been in dissent since 1949. What changes is not the pattern, it is the technology. Mao used struggle sessions, Deng used prisons, Xi uses cameras, social credits, DNA databases. The result is the same. Anyone who organizes faith, identity, or politics outside the party finds themselves on the list.
12 categories of Chinese citizens flee, listed Uyghurs and other Muslim minorities, Hui, Kazakh, Kyrgyz from Xinjiang, house Christians and underground church members from across China, Falun Gong practitioners persecuted since 1999, Tibetan Buddhists, monks, nuns, lay practitioners, Hong Kong pro-democracy activists after the 2020 national security law, human rights lawyers. The 709 crackdown of July 2015 still echoes. Journalists, Chinese and foreign correspondents under pressure. Pro-democracy academics, particularly those who studied abroad, LGBT plus Chinese, increasingly visible repression since 2017. Feminists, the Me Too China movement was crushed. Online dissenters, bloggers, Weibo critics, WeChat activists, former Communist Party insiders who fled with information. If you are working on a Chinese asylum case, whether Uyghur persecution, Christian crackdown, Falun Gong, Tibet, Hong Kong, or political dissent, country expert reports for China are available on our website. Link in the description. These reports are written by country experts in London, specifically for asylum tribunals in the United Kingdom, the United States, Canada, and the European Union. Xinjiang, the Uyghur Autonomous Region in northwestern China, home to about 12 million Uyghurs, plus Hui, Kazakh, and Kyrgyz Muslim minorities. The mass internment began around 2017. Between 1 and 1.8 million Uyghurs were detained at the peak in so-called vocational education and training centers. The Xinjiang police files, leaked in 2022, confirmed detention conditions and shoot-to-kill orders, forced labor, Uyghur workers transferred to factories across China, supplying global brands, restrictions on language, religion, family planning. Birth rates fell about 50% between 2017 and 2019. The United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights, Volker Turk, said it directly at the Human Rights Council in September 2025.
In China, the progress we have sought for the protection of the rights of Uyghurs and other Muslim minorities in Xinjiang, as well as Tibetans in their regions, has yet to materialize.
China has between 40 and 90 million Christians, depending on how you count underground churches. The Communist Party recognizes 5 religions on paper: Buddhism, Taoism, Islam, Catholicism, and Protestantism, but only through state-controlled bodies. Anything outside is illegal. The regulations on religious affairs, revised in 2018, criminalize house churches. Foreign religious content is restricted. Clergy must register with state-controlled bodies. The Open Doors World Watch List, China, has consistently ranked among the 20 worst countries for Christians since 2018. Crosses were removed from over 1,500 government-recognized churches in Xinjiang province alone between 2014 and 2016. Children under 18 are banned from religious instruction under the 2018 regulations. China has produced some of the most courageous dissidents of the modern era, and it has tried to silence every one of them. Wei Jingsheng, born 1950, the father of the modern Chinese democracy movement. In 1978, he wrote The Fifth Modernization, a wall poster calling for democracy. 18 years in prison, released 1997 under international pressure, and immediately deported to the United States. He now lives in Washington, D.C. Wang, born 1969, number 1 on the most wanted list after Tiananmen. Peking University history student, 10 years in Chinese prisons, released on medical grounds in 1998 and forced into exile in the United States. Wuer Kaixi, born 1968, number 2 on the most wanted list, famously confronted Premier Li Peng on national television, evacuated through Hong Kong via Operation Yellowbird. He now lives in Taiwan. Ai Weiwei, born 1957, artist and political activist. He designed the Bird's Nest Stadium for the Beijing 2008 Olympics. In 2011, he was secretly detained by Chinese authorities for 81 days, subjected to beatings, house arrest, passport confiscation. As soon as his passport was returned in 2015, he moved to Berlin. He lives in Portugal today. 4 men, 40 years apart in age, all shared the same fate: silence at home or freedom abroad. And the silencing continues today. In July 2015, the so-called 709 crackdown, named after the date of the first arrests, July 9, targeted over 300 human rights lawyers and activists across China. Some are still detained. Many fled. Hong Kong, the one country, two systems promise of 1997, is over. On the 30th of June 2020, the national security law was passed by Beijing, not by the Hong Kong legislature. It criminalizes secession, subversion, terrorism, and collusion with foreign forces. The penalties go up to life imprisonment. Hundreds of pro-democracy activists have been arrested under the national security law since 2020. Apple Daily was forced to close. Its founder, Jimmy Lai, was detained in December 2020. Trial ongoing as of 2026. Article 23, the Safeguarding National Security Ordinance, was passed in March 2024. It adds new offenses including treason, espionage, sedition. Tibet has been under Chinese rule since 1950. The Dalai Lama fled in 1959 and has lived in exile in Dharamsala, India ever since. Today, Tibetan Buddhism is under tight state control. Children are removed from monasteries. Monks must denounce the Dalai Lama publicly. Mandarin replaces Tibetan in schools. Surveillance is everywhere. There are roughly 150,000 Tibetan exiles worldwide in India, Nepal, Switzerland, the United States, and Canada. Tibetans in Nepal are often stateless. China pressures Nepal to deny them documentation. More than 159 Tibetans have set themselves on fire in protest since 2009.
The rights of Uyghurs and other Muslim minorities in Xinjiang and of Tibetans in their regions. This includes labor issues and religious and cultural freedoms.
Every Chinese asylum case faces the same question. Could the person have moved within China? My answer is the same. China is one country, one party, one surveillance system, one social credit network. The Uyghur tracked in Xinjiang is tracked in Shanghai. The Christian flagged in Hainan is flagged in Beijing. The Hong Kong activist on Article 23 is wanted across all of China. Internal relocation in China is not relocation. It is surveillance with a different postcode.
China is one of the largest origins of asylum claims worldwide, but the numbers are hard to track because Beijing pressures countries not to grant status. Here are the numbers we have. United States, Chinese asylum approval is between 70 and 75%, one of the highest by nationality, due to Falun Gong, religious, and Tibetan profiles. United Kingdom, between 40 and 60% depending on profile. Uyghur claims highest, urban political claims lower. Canada, between 50 and 70% for documented profiles. Uyghur, Tibetan, Falun Gong. Germany, between 35 and 55%, strict on individual evidence requirements. Australia, between 30 and 45%, historic pressure from Chinese economic ties. Why do acceptance rates vary so much? 3 factors. 1. Profile clarity. A Uyghur from Kashgar with detention records gets accepted at over 80%. An urban Chinese intellectual without documented persecution events gets accepted at under 30%. 2. Geopolitical pressure. Countries with major trade ties to China are slower to recognize Chinese asylum claims. 3. Documentation. Chinese persecution is often soft. Surveillance, harassment, social credit downgrades. Harder to document than physical violence. Which Refugee Convention grounds apply? Race or ethnicity. Uyghurs, Tibetans, Hui, Kazakh, Kyrgyz. Religion. Christians from house churches. Muslims from Xinjiang. Buddhists from Tibet. Falun Gong practitioners. Political opinion. Democracy activists. Tiananmen legacy. Hong Kong national security law targets. Human rights lawyers. Particular social group. LGBT, feminists, journalists. Online dissenters 709 lawyers, nationality, Tibetan under Chinese sovereignty claim, and stateless profile. 5 things that consistently win Chinese asylum cases. 1. Ethnic identification documentation, Uyghur identity cards, Tibetan family records, Hui ancestry papers. 2. Detention or interrogation evidence, family members in vocational education and training centers, documented police visits, surveillance footage referenced in summon. 3. Religious community membership, pastor letters, congregation records, house church location. 4. Country expert report, explaining the system, social credit, Article 23 of the Hong Kong law, the 709 crackdown. 5. Documented online activity, Weibo posts deleted, WeChat accounts banned, Twitter accounts created from outside China. 5 things that killed Chinese cases. Generic claims without ethnic, religious, or political specificity. Inability to explain why this particular person was targeted, not just China is bad. No country expert report for nuanced vocational center, social credit, or national security law profiles. Inconsistent timeline between asylum interview and tribunal hearing. Failure to address the China is too big to flee within the argument. China is a civilization. 3,000 years of philosophy, art, science. The country that gave the world paper, gunpowder, printing, the compass. The country of Confucius, of Tang dynasty poetry, of Ai Weiwei. But it is also the country where 1 million Uyghurs are detained, where Christians cannot meet in their own homes, where Hong Kong democracy is dead, where Tibet has been culturally erased, where every dissident from Wei Jingsheng in 1978 to today's 709 lawyers faces the same choice. Silence at home or freedom abroad. They call this the silent repression because the world tries to forget. Today, we made it loud. If you are a Chinese asylum seeker or a lawyer working with one, country expert reports for China are on our website. Link in the description. If you know someone who needs this video, share it. Comment which country you want covered next. Subscribe and we will see you in the next case.